Hello, course participants. Welcome to a discussion of drafting final research papers. It seemed to me that a great number of you will be developing research papers, and it would be helpful for us to discuss them. So let's go through a little bit of a presentation, and let's actually move me over to the other side of the screen. Okay, so drafting a final research presentation from drafting stages onward. First of all, deciding upon a thesis topic, stage one questions. When you're developing a research paper, and some of you may be beyond this point, but we're going to start back at early drafting stages and then work forward. You need to ask yourself, what am I most passionate about? My topic needs to be interesting enough to hold my own attention, much less anyone else's, for the next few weeks or months, perhaps. In the case of graduate students, it would be months. In your case, you probably only have a couple of weeks left in this spring term. So let's see, let's continue on. Can I identify any compelling issues in my research field? That's always a good question to ask. Do I have a particular opinion or belief about an issue in my research field? Those are good guiding questions. Mind mapping, anyone? This is a strategy for drafting papers, which maybe you've tried, maybe you haven't. Perhaps you already know what you intend to write about. Perhaps you have no idea at all. In either stage, an exercise called mind mapping can help you recognize what ideas, topics, or issues are most important to you. Please take out 2 pieces of blank paper and draw a circle or whatever shape makes you happy about 1.5 inches in diameter in the middle of each piece of paper. Within each circle, please write down either your academic discipline or professional affiliation. In my case, I wrote down museums on one page and museum studies on the other. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And remember, since this is a video, you can pause at any time. Okay, 2 examples. These were my 2 examples of a way of doing mind mapping. Neither of them are particularly linear. Some of you may have simply chosen to write a list. That's great. In my case, I put museums, and then I radiated out from the center different words or ideas about museums I had. And then on the second one, I kind of organized it more as a way of symbolically relating ideas to myself. Whatever works for you, basically. So from the center. Now, in the first example, I simply drew a line and then another circle radiating out from the center with the words that immediately came to mind when I thought about my field of research. I want you at home to go ahead and do that now if you are in the drafting stages. If not, then obviously you'll be skipping this section. Go ahead and pause the video and then continue when you're ready. I'm going to assume that you've paused the video and continued when you are ready. So we're on to purpose, popular opinion, audience, and results. I always kind of divide up my drafting process into this. I ask myself what my purpose is, what I think others believe about my possible topic, who I'm writing for, and what outcome or result or impact would I like my paper to have. So please look for a moment at the words that you have gathered in your previous drafting, your mind map. Do they form any patterns? I usually do a second mind map chart, dividing it up to focused intent, as I've just previously mentioned. Because time is of the essence, I recommend drawing a table with the headings purpose, popular opinion, audience, and results. Now I'm going to give you a moment to kind of set that up. You can pause this video and then continue. Okay, going to actually move my image to the other side. Okay, so we see here I have a grid, compelling purpose, popular opinion, audience, and results. I recommend creating a chart like this. And let's talk about what I mean by these things. So compelling purpose, what are the most interesting and or controversial characteristics of your research field or your topic that you're considering discussing? In popular opinion, what do you believe that your family or the world at large think about your research field? Audience, who will be interested in your research project and eventually read your report or thesis or paper? Results, what impact or outcome will your research have? Will it create social change, or is your research primarily documentary in nature? Right, let's look at this again then, returning to the center. So compelling purpose In my case, I wrote shared narrative conflict. My topic is museums, and I wrote about them as places of shared narrative conflict. Popular opinion of museums, I think, in many of my friends and family is that they are dusty and tradition-ridden. Audience, I'm probably writing for other museologists and interested parties in academe, and then results change, also documentary. I intend my paper to have an impact of social change agency, but also to document kind of the current status of things. Right, okay. So let's go on to compelling purpose. Let's look at that a little bit more in a focused way. All right, so please place the word or phrase that comes to mind when you think of what is most compelling about your academic field or topic. In my case, I wrote down shared narrative and conflict because that is one of the most central characteristics of the museum experience. Take a moment to write down your compelling purpose now. When you're ready, you can pause the video, and then when you're ready, continue. Popular opinion. Okay, ask yourself again, what do you, your family, and friends think about your subject of study? Is your expertise considered common knowledge? Is it considered difficult to understand? In my case, I wrote down the words dusty and tradition-ridden because I think that museums are often viewed as static places of history. That doesn't have to be the case, but I think that they're often viewed that way. Okay, think for a moment, what is the popular opinion or unpopular opinion of your topic, as the case may be? What do others think about your topic? And you may actually find that you're having to divide that up because there may be different groups that have kind of different perspectives on your topic. And you might want to take a moment just to note what those different perspectives are. Okay, pause the video, and then when you're ready, continue on. Okay, back again. Now, audience. Under audience, please fill in words or phrases about who you expect to be reading your work and or who your work will matter to most. In my case, I wrote down academe because I tend to think my work is read by academics and other museum professionals. You may have a similar answer, that you're writing your paper for me, for example, or for your co-learners. Ideally, though, I hope that you're writing your work for posterity a little bit, for others. And think about who you would want that audience to be. Imagine, because you are, imagine yourself as a scholar being published in a journal, and consider who would read it. Or where would you have it best published? If your paper could be published anywhere, where would it be? Would it be in the New York Times newspaper? Would it be in some sort of magazine that you would self-publish and give to others? Or is there a favorite magazine you have that you would want it to appear in? Would it be a website that you admire? So think about your audience. Who are you writing this for, and who do you want to read this eventually? Certainly, you're going to have a bit of an academic tone because this is an academic paper written for my class. But beyond beyond this class, who would your audience for this paper be? Okay. Now we've moved on to results. Obviously, you could have paused in the last one and wrote about your audience and then come on to results. So you might even want to do that now. If you weren't finished with audience as I moved forward, pause now. And we'll pretend that you've done that. You've written about audience, you've come back, and we're now working on results. Right. The last quadrant, results. Please write down what impact you would like your research to have. For example, is change of some sort the most important thing that you would like to have happen in your research, or is documentation? Are you documenting a condition that you want to be understood for the future, or even the present and future? Or is there a change that you wish to create? Do you want to raise awareness? What is your purpose of result? What result, impact do you want this paper to have? So if someone's going to read this paper, what do you want to have as an impact upon that audience, that person or persons reading the paper? This question is very important because it will help determine the sort of research you want or need to accomplish, as well as the best way to go about conducting that research. All right, relationships between ideas. And again, you could have paused, written something about your results, moved on to this. Because once you've looked at all these four quadrants, what you want to do is consider the relationship between these different quadrants and ideas. So after having developed mind maps such as these for a while, I usually start looking at possible relationships between these different ideas that I have written down. I then take 3 minutes or so to free write about what I see in my diagram. So let's do that together now. For 3 minutes on a separate paper or within a Word document, please write about the ideas within your mind maps. Everybody ready? Okay, please start. Okay, pause this for 3 minutes, write for 3 minutes, come back again. Okay, we'll see you in a moment. I'm going to pretend you've paused for 3 minutes and you're going to come back. Now, 3 minutes later, like magic, free write reflection. So I am going to, when I did this originally, drafted originally, I wrote for 3 minutes. So after 3 minutes, you stop. Previous to this class, I had my husband time me, free writing about my mind map, and I came up with some results. And please note, this is unedited, it's just as a free write would be, so there might be a few errors in there. Free write for research methods, 3 minutes. My expertise is in research methods, particularly Indigenous research methods. I hope to make my community academic and my home community more aware of the importance and value of Indigenous research methodology. I hope that this will become a more commonplace practice and observe that no one seems to really understand what it is and that many academics are afraid of it because makes the traditional forms of ethnography, social commentary, there's very little support. So with no support, what hope do we have to make inroads into the mainstream, those of us who are part of the Indigenous community? I think it will happen, but it will take time and courage and maybe, and I ran out of time at that point, so I had to stop. Not the most polished, finished, or eloquent piece of writing I've ever done, but that's not the purpose of a free write. The purpose of the free write and the mind mapping exercises is to give one an opportunity to see what stands out. And when I looked at it, there were a number of words or phrases that I noticed. Research methods, community, Indigenous, academic, those showed up frequently in my work. I find it helpful to write those things down and highlight them. Ultimately, what I'm going to do is go back to those quadrants, look at those cardinal directions, and make them into questions and answers so that I can formulate what I call derived statements from these exercises. Let's look at some of that. Formulating derived statements. Move over here. Okay. My next step is to ask myself what new preliminary statements or questions might be possible. In my case, I responded with the following. So what is most compelling in my field? I wrote the museums are places of shared narrative, also places of shared conflict. In what social attitudes do I perceive to be prevalent concerning my research? Popular culture thinks museums are dusty. Who is my audience? In the thesis, primarily, I think I'll be talking to other museologist colleagues and academics. What impact will my work have? I'm trying primarily to change my profession or document something about it. Am I trying to do that? Yes, I am. I'm trying to do a bit of both, actually. I'm trying to change my profession and document something that's going on. Okay, that's good. I now have a better grasp on what I believe my field of research is, what's going on with it, what some issues are that I think are important, and what I might actually refine into statements based upon those ideas. So what would that look like? Hey, yep. What might more refined derived statements look like? Here are some examples. One of the most compelling things about museums is that they are places of contested narrative. I enjoy the concept of museologists as artists and storytellers, as mediators of shared contested narrative experiences. Many people find museums interesting only if there are sensational exhibits, such as Egyptian mummies or sharp-toothed dinosaurs. I think this is not lost on curators, and they try to make all subjects in museums sensational, sometimes at the cost of ethical display practices, but not always. I think today museologists are simply striving to make their exhibits interesting and engaging. My audience will be other academics, especially my thesis committee. If I were still working on my thesis, which I'm not, I finished my thesis and dissertation, and thankfully I am past that. But for those of you still in it, those still working on these things, or even just a research paper for the end of the term, uh, good luck with that. Anyway, my audience at the time, and your audience now, would probably be anyone who's evaluating your work, and possibly others, in my case, other museologists. My work will ideally impact best practices in museums, particularly with regard to representation of living cultures in First Nations communities. Okay. Observe that many or most of these derived statements are contestable and could therefore provide the basis for an actual research inquiry. If there's no question of the statement you're making, it's not a very good topic for argumentation, debate, or research. So make sure that what you're looking at isn't simply about information. If you're meant to write an argumentative paper, you must have the ability to have a subject you can take a position on, that you can argue something, that you can show there are at least two perspectives on it, and you are able to illuminate what the conflict is and why you've taken a particular perspective on that conflict and why you're right about your perspective. All right. For example, I could change the statement that museums are places of contested narrative into a question. Are museums places of contested narrative? A quick review of the literature in museum studies, though, would tell me this question has already been researched fairly thoroughly. Therefore, I might want to spend my time asking a different question. It may take several tries to find a worthy research question, so don't give up. That's really typical. Do not be discouraged. This search for a worthy question is all part of your development as a scholar. Even if my question about contested narrative were novel, I would still need to make a significant refinement of the question. Um, if it's too general. If I only have a few months to complete my research, or a couple of weeks in the case of some students, I need to be very specific and think about the type of research I want to do. We will return to this topic more in depth in a discussion of research design and research types later on. Yes, I'm going to have another presentation about finding research topics online. Okay. I'm getting in the way of your reading. Okay, writing an argumentative essay. Page 83 of the course, tests in philosophy. So if you're in Philosophy 210, you've got the book for this, Thinking with Socrates. If you're not, these are still great ideas for steps to writing an argumentative essay, and anyone in any class, English 101, English 102, can benefit from this. So step one, state your thesis, the position you intend to support, as clearly and exactly as you can. This will be the conclusion of your argument. Define your terms to avoid ambiguity and vagueness. Okay, next, step two. Next, ask yourself, what are my reasons for believing that my conclusion is true? What evidence will I offer in support of my conclusion? List your reasons as clearly and succinctly as you can. Step three, continue by asking yourself, if a thoughtful person were to disagree with me, what might he or she say in response to my argument? What might they say in response to my argument? How might they object? There are two ways someone might criticize your argument: by arguing that one of your premises is false, and by arguing that the reasoning within your arguments is not good reasoning. State a strong objection to your argument, one as an informed person might make. So what this is taken directly from the text, and what the author is suggesting, and I agree with this, is that you need to imagine you're sitting across a table from someone, you're telling them your ideas, and you have to imagine that they disagree with you. What are they saying, and how will you respond? Okay. Step 4. Next, ask, how would I defend my position against this objection? So you've imagined what the objection would be, and now how do you respond? Would I answer this objection, or how would I answer this objection to my view? State your reply to the objection as clearly and succinctly as possible. So go through, state what the opposition is and what your response is all the way through. So you've defined what your argument is, you've imagined what the opposition would say, you've imagined how you would respond. Okay. Step 5, your argument now exists in rough outline form. Okay, it's time to flesh it out, expand your outline into an essay, complete sentences so that your reasoning flows from start to finish. At this stage, add an introduction to the set of the context, including definitions, explaining important ideas, so on and so forth. Okay, so basically you have etched out what your argument is and what responses to it would be, and that should give you some ideas of the sort of sources that you might need to have on it. You also have to adapt this method to specific assignment requirements, and they're bound to be different throughout Heritage and depending on the course you're taking. Okay, well, many thanks for now. This the transcript for this will be under the lecture notes. There will be other supportive lectures on the subject of writing the papers. Conducting online research is, I believe, the next topic I intend to review in a separate video. So again, during this time of COVID-19, please stay well, stay safe, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Many thanks.